Hi there, I'm Natalie and I'm 31 years old. I've been married to my husband Wayne for 5 years now. We're really excited because we're expecting our first baby soon. We live in a small, comfortable house in a nice middle-class neighborhood. Before I got pregnant, I worked as a marketing executive. It was a job I absolutely loved because it kept me busy, let me be creative, and challenged me in the best ways. But when I found out I was pregnant, Wayne and I decided it would be better for me to take a break from work to focus on the pregnancy and prepare for the baby's arrival. Wayne has been supportive, at least that's what he says, but sometimes I feel like he sees me differently now that I'm not working. He has a stable job as an accountant and has taken on the responsibility of being the main earner without complaining. Still, I sometimes get this uneasy feeling, like he's starting to agree with his mom's old-fashioned ideas about how women should behave. Now, let me tell you about Tiffany, my mother-in-law. She's quite a personality. In her late 60s, she's known for her sharp comments and endless opinions, which she shares whether you ask for them or not. She has always had an issue with me. Although she tries to cover it up with fake smiles and advice, she pretends is concerned. Tiffany believes that women should depend on their husbands and take on traditional roles, which I completely disagree with. Wayne, unfortunately, grew up thinking his mom is always right. He's a total mama's boy and listens to her more than anyone else. I've tried talking to him about how I feel, but he usually just says I'm overthinking or worrying too much. Maybe I am, but it's hard to ignore when Tiffany is constantly hanging around, giving us unsolicited advice and pushing her outdated views on our family. Thankfully, I have Brittany, my best friend, who's been my biggest support system. Brittany is a lawyer, smart and independent, and she always knows what to say to make me feel better. She listens to me and gives me advice, which has been a lifesaver, especially since the tension with Tiffany has been getting worse. Right now, my main focus is getting ready for the baby. Most of my days are spent preparing the nursery, making sure it's perfect for when our little one arrives. Even though things with Tiffany and Wayne can be stressful, I'm determined to create a warm, loving home for our baby. On the outside, everything might look normal, but it's not always easy. Still, I'm hopeful that things will work out, and I'm staying positive for the future. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about my career, how much I miss it, and how I worry that Tiffany, my mother-in-law, thinks I'm useless now that I'm staying home. One afternoon, I found myself reflecting on this during a rare, quiet moment. The house was still except for the soft hum of the refrigerator, and I was folding laundry in the living room, trying to push away my nervous thoughts about Tiffany's upcoming visit. She has a habit of showing up unannounced, always ready to offer her critiques, whether I ask for them or not. Sure enough, the doorbell rang, and there she was. Her sharp eyes scanned the room like she was hunting for something to pick apart. "You know, Natalie, it's a shame to see you like this, just wasting away at home," she said. Her words stung, but I try to stay calm and keep my voice steady. "Tiffany, I'm pregnant. Not incapable," I replied. "I'm just taking a break from work for now." She crossed her arms, her expression sour. "But you're not contributing, are you? My son is the one bringing in all the money. What exactly do you do all day?" I clenched the shirt I was folding, biting back the urge to snap at her. "I'm preparing for your grandchild, Tiffany. That's not doing nothing." My voice was firm but controlled, hoping to end the conversation there. She scoffed loudly, her disapproval clear. "Preparing? It looks more like you're lounging around while Wayne works all day, only for you to spend his money." Before I could even respond, she stormed off upstairs. My heart was pounding as I followed her, unsure of what she was planning. When I reached our bedroom, I was horrified to see her pulling open drawers and slamming closet doors. Without warning, she began throwing my clothes out the window. "My son is the breadwinner, and you're useless," she shouted, grabbing another handful of my belongings and tossing them outside. I stood there, frozen in shock, as she continued her rampage. My hands shook as I watched my things land in the grass below. "Tiffany, stop." I finally managed to yell, but she ignored me completely. Once she seemed satisfied with the chaos she'd caused, she pushed past me without another word, leaving the room in disarray. The front door slammed shut behind her, and the house was eerily quiet again. When Wayne came home, He found my clothes scattered across the lawn. I didn't know what to say to him. The whole situation felt surreal, like something out of a bad dream. I was shaken to my core, wondering how things had gotten this far, and how I could ever set boundaries with someone so determined to tear me down. I was still trying to make sense of everything when Wayne came home. He walked up to the house, his face tense and confused as he looked at the mess outside. "Natalie, why is all your stuff on the lawn?" he asked, his voice filled with both surprise and concern. "Your mother," I managed to say, my voice shaky as I tried to hold back tears. "She thinks I'm useless." Wayne sighed deeply, the kind of sigh that seemed to carry all the weight of the world. "Look, Natalie, Mom can be a bit much sometimes, but maybe you should try to see things from her perspective," he said. His words hit me like a punch to the chest. "From her perspective?" "Wayne, she threw my clothes outside. How can you think that's okay?" He was already shaking his head, brushing off my reaction. "She's stressed too. We need to be understanding." Understanding? The word echoed in my head, cruel and mocking. It felt like he was defending her actions instead of supporting me. While he went to pick up my scattered clothes, it felt more like he was cleaning up for her than standing by my side. Later, I called Brittany, my best friend, and the tears I had been holding back finally spilled over. "She threw my things outside, Brittany. In front of everyone. And Wayne, he just took her side," I said, my voice breaking. Brittany's reply was firm and full of warmth. "Natalie, this is not okay. You know that, right? You can't let her or Wayne keep treating you this way." "What can I do?" "He's my husband," I replied, feeling helpless. "And she's harassing you," Brittany said without hesitation. "Natalie, this could have legal consequences. You have rights. You can stand up for yourself." Her words gave me a tiny spark of hope, a flicker of strength I hadn't felt in a long time. I wiped away my tears, my heart beginning to steady. "You're right," I said. "I can't keep living like this. I have to do something." "Start documenting everything," Brittany advised. "Texts, incidents, her words, anything. It's not just about building a case if you need to. It's also about showing Wayne how serious this is." After we hung up, I sat down with a notebook and started writing. I listed every cruel word Tiffany had said to me, every incident that had made me feel small or unwelcome. As I wrote, something shifted inside me. Maybe Wayne couldn't see how toxic his mother's behavior was because he had lived with it all his life. Maybe I needed to show him, to make him confront it. That night, I made a decision. Things needed to change, and I wasn't going to wait for someone else to fix them. I was going to take control, speak up, and make sure my voice was heard. It was time to stand up for myself and my future. At the time, I didn't realize how deep the problem went or how difficult it would be to deal with. But one thing was clear. I was done being a victim. Things got worse before they got better. It started small, quiet whispers from neighbors chatting in their yards. But those whispers grew into rumors, the kind that follow you everywhere and make you feel trapped. "You know," one neighbor said, "Tiffany told me that Natalie's just after Wayne's money. She quit her job as soon as she married him. It's obvious she's a gold digger." Hearing people talk about me like that hurt deeply. I felt angry and betrayed, but I wasn't going to let Tiffany's lies destroy my life. I knew I had to act and get proof to stop her. So I called Brittany. Together, we came up with a plan. "I'm going to invite Tiffany over for tea," I told Brittany. "I think I can get her to show her true colors. I'll record everything." Brittany, always practical, replied, "We need her to admit what she's doing. That's the only way to prove it." The next day, I set everything up. I placed my phone discreetly to record audio and invited Tiffany over, pretending I wanted to clear the air. She arrived with her usual fake smile, polite on the surface, but full of hidden malice. We sat in the living room, the tea already laid out. I tried to sound calm as I hit record. "Tiffany, I really want to understand why you've been so upset with me," I began. She took a sip of tea, her eyes narrowing as she looked at me. "Natalie, it's simple. You're not right for my son. You're dragging him down, and frankly, I think you're using him." Her words were like ice, but I pressed on. "Why do you think that, Tiffany?" She shrugged, her tone cold and casual. Because it's true. I want what's best for Wayne, and that's not you. I've been trying to show him the truth, hoping you'd leave on your own. Her confession was a harsh reality check, but it was exactly what I needed. I stayed composed until she left. That night, I played the recording for Wayne. My heart pounded as his mother's voice filled the room. Her cruel words were undeniable. Wayne's face turned pale as he listened. I hoped he would finally understand what I had been dealing with. But instead of supporting me, his reaction was muted. He seemed conflicted, caught between his loyalty to me and his fear of upsetting his mother. It wasn't the resolution I hoped for, but I knew this was only the beginning. I had taken the first step to stand up for myself, and I wasn't going to stop. Change would take time, but I was determined to fight for my happiness and my family's future. His next words broke what little trust was left between us. Natalie, why would you do this? It feels like you're trying to manipulate me against my own mother, Wayne said, his tone filled with accusation. His words cut deep, sharper than I expected. Wayne, she admitted to trying to break us up. How can you not see what's happening? I pleaded, desperate for him to understand. But he just shook his head, trapped in his denial. I need some air, he muttered before walking out, leaving me alone to face the crumbling pieces of our marriage. At that moment, it became painfully clear Wayne would never fully stand by my side. Not when it came to his mother. Feeling defeated, I picked up the phone and called Brittany. It's time, I told her. I want to file harassment charges against Tiffany. And I think I need to file for separation from Wayne. Her voice was gentle, filled with sadness for me. Are you sure, Natalie? This is a big step. Yes, I said firmly, though my heart ached. It's the only way I can protect myself. After I hung up, I sat in the quiet of my home, letting the weight of my decision sink in. I knew my life was about to change forever. This wasn't the life I had dreamed of when Wayne and I got married, but as I looked around the house, I realized it hadn't felt like a real home in a long time. It was time to move forward. 2 months later, I found myself in a courtroom. The room was silent except for the shuffling of papers and hushed voices. Sitting next to Brittany, I felt a mix of nervousness and determination. Across the room, Tiffany sat with her usual defiant expression, her face a mask of stubbornness. Today, everything would finally be revealed, and I clung to the hope that justice would prevail. Miss Jeremy, you may present your evidence, the judge's steady voice echoed in the high-ceilinged room. Brittany stood up, radiating confidence. Her presence was commanding, and I felt a glimmer of reassurance, knowing she was fighting for me. Brittany presented the recordings I had made, playing Tiffany's own words for the court. The venom in Tiffany's voice, her confessions of trying to break my marriage, and her relentless attacks on my character now filled the room. I could see the reactions of those present: shock, discomfort, even anger. Finally, the truth was out in the open, and Tiffany could no longer hide behind her fake smiles and polite facades. As I sat there listening, I felt a sense of release. I had done everything I could to stand up for myself. No matter what happened next, I knew I had taken the first steps toward building a better future, one where I wouldn't let anyone tear me down again. Whatever the outcome, I was ready to rebuild my life, stronger than before. Brittany began presenting all the evidence we had gathered: months of harassment, recordings of Tiffany's cruel words, testimonies from neighbors, and even a video showing Tiffany throwing my belongings out onto the lawn. Each piece of evidence felt like a weight being lifted off my shoulders. Tiffany's toxic behavior, which had once made me feel trapped, was now being exposed for everyone to see. Instead of holding me down, her actions were now helping to free me. Ladies and gentlemen, Brittany addressed the court, her voice calm but firm. It's clear that Mrs. Walters' actions were deliberate and harmful. Her goal was to drive my client to a breaking point. We seek a restraining order and damages for the severe emotional distress she caused. Tiffany's lawyer tried to defend her by painting her as a concerned mother who was only looking out for her son. But the evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, testimonies, and video made it impossible to deny what she had done. When Tiffany took the stand, Her usual confidence seemed to crack under the weight of her own admissions. "I just wanted what was best for Wayne," she said, her voice trembling slightly. She glanced at me, and for the first time, I thought I saw fear in her eyes. It was hard to feel sympathy after everything she had put me through. The judge didn't take long to make a decision. The court grants Miss Jeremy a restraining order against Mrs. Walters. Additionally, Mrs. Walters is ordered to pay damages for emotional distress. This case is closed. The sound of the gavel was like music to my ears. As we left the courtroom, Brittany placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You did it, Natalie," she said. I could only nod, feeling a mix of relief and closure. This painful chapter of my life was finally over. The aftermath came quickly. Wayne's lack of support during the trial didn't go unnoticed. Neighbors who had once been friendly toward him became distant, and I heard that whispers followed him wherever he went. One evening, he showed up at my new apartment, looking uncomfortable as he stood at my door. "I'm sorry, Natalie," he said. "I see it now. Can we try again?" His words lingered in the air, but my heart had already moved on. "No, Wayne," I said softly but firmly. "It's too late." He nodded, sadness filling his eyes, but I turned away, closing the door on what used to be. With Tiffany out of my life and my marriage behind me, I focused on rebuilding. Brittany, as always, was my rock. She stood by me through the last months of my pregnancy and helped me move to a new city where I could start fresh. Though it had been a painful journey, I was finally ready to move forward and build the life I deserved. I found a new job in marketing, and it felt like a fresh start. Getting back to work brought excitement and energy back into my life. Balancing my career and being a mother wasn't easy, but it gave me a sense of purpose and made me feel whole again. Slowly but surely, my spirit began to heal. The day I gave birth to my daughter was the most incredible day of my life. When I held her for the first time, I felt an overwhelming sense of love and relief. She was so tiny, so beautiful, and absolutely perfect. In that moment, I made a promise to her, a promise to give her a life full of love, peace, and happiness, free from the shadows that had once darkened mine. "Welcome to the world, little one," I whispered to her. "We're going to be just fine." As I sat in that hospital room holding her, I realized something important. I hadn't just survived everything I had been through, I had taken my life back. I had broken free from the toxic chains that had tried to hold me down, and now I was truly free to move forward. Holding my daughter, I knew that brighter days were ahead for both of us. This is where my story ends, or maybe where a new chapter begins. But I want to ask you something. Do you think I was right to completely cut Wayne out of my life? Should I have given him a chance to change after his initial support for his mother? Or was my decision to move on the right one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video and share your opinions. Thanks for being part of this journey with me.